she is. Hey,
Hello,
Kayla.
how are you?
I am well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Can't
Fan-
complain.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us on the SPRTER podcast. Let me introduce you to our audience. We have Kayla Hracho here, who is an American MMA fighter. Has been in the sport for 4 years and has racked up an impressive record in the meantime, as in Extreme Fighting Championships. Got a record of 7-2, got an MMA 330, and achieved CWC Strawweight Championship title, UCC Strawweight Championship, and 119-pound ringside National Boxing Championship title. So impressive records that you've racked up over your career, and I want to make sure that we mention your SPRTER experience store on the SPRTER app. So anyone interested in unique experiences with Kayla, make sure to join her there, follow her there, book some experiences, and check her out there. So without further ado, welcome to the SPRTER podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And you did your research. I like that.
we got to make sure we're talking to champions. We got to make sure we do champion research. So walk me back to how it all started. How did you get into fighting, and when did you realize that, hey, I'm really good at this?
Wow. So this is quite a story, actually. After I graduated college, I moved out to New Hampshire for my first big girl job. And I ended up making a silly mistake and getting fired just a few months later. In that moment, I really thought my life was over. I had to move back home with mom and dad for like the 8th time and just start over. You know, I was kind of in like a depressive time in my life. And during that first week that I moved back home, I was kind of gym hopping and taking advantage of free day passes. And the last gym that I walked into was a boxing gym. And it didn't take very long for me to fall in love with the sport. I loved the physical and mental challenge that came with boxing. And, you know, I showed up every single day and worked hard. And I knew that if I stuck with it, that I could make something from it, you know, or that it would just be good for me. So I stuck with it. I showed up every day. And it kind of brought me here to ATT.
That's crazy how something like being fired from a job just triggers that, hey, I need to do something. And now most people don't just go to the gym, start boxing, box every day, and then realize, you know what, I'm good at this. I'm gonna make this my living. When did you realize that part, as in, hey, I'm gonna make some money of this, or I'm gonna be going pro?
That's tough. I only boxed for about 2 years amateur, and at the time I was still working full time. But I think it was I made sort of a lot of sacrifices in that I was willing to kind of move around to try to find the best gyms possible. And I was kind of taking jobs and quitting jobs just to kind of support my boxing, my training. So I think that's when I kind of realized, like, I must really love this. Um, I don't think I didn't think I could really make money from it at the time. You know, 5 years ago, women really weren't making money in boxing. And that's actually what drove me to make the switch to MMA. Um, so, like I said, about 2 years of amateur boxing experience, and a former ATT coach, Dean Thomas, happened to come across one of my boxing videos, and he commented on it and complimented me. And from there, for whatever reason, I don't know what made me want to do this, but I reached out to Dean and I basically sold myself as a, and I said, you know, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to reach my highest potential as a fighter. I know that if I come to ATT and train with the best in the world, I will achieve that. And, you know, after a short conversation, Dean was like, all right, when are you coming to visit? So without any MMA experience or really even that much desire to learn all of the arts in MMA, I took a chance. You know, it was an opportunity of a lifetime to go visit the best MMA gym in the world. So I really kind of felt like I had nothing to lose. So I went to visit. I spent a week at ETT, and about a month later, I moved my life down here.
So you're originally from Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah.
And now you're spending your life in sunny Florida.
Mm-hmm.
How has that switch changed your, I guess, in a daily life?
I love it here. I really do. I've been in South Florida for about 5 years now. So honestly, it feels like home. When I go visit PA, I'm like freezing to death. So definitely different. I'm definitely used to the weather down here, and I really do love it here. But, you know, there's things that I miss about PA. My whole family is there. Sometimes I miss the seasons, but besides that, I'm pretty happy here.
Well, I can tell you it is currently below freezing in Philadelphia, so I I am a little bit envious, but it makes sense in terms of Florida. You can be outside. There's a lot of, I guess there's also a lot of potential just to train outside then, and just for any sort of activity. Sorry, I interrupted you.
I just said it's just always beautiful out. I mean, you really can't trade that. It's awesome.
Now, when you talk about training, you mentioned the physical and the mental side of boxing, but I'm sure that is somewhat similar in any fighting. Can you elaborate a little bit on the mental side? Because we all, I mean, getting punched in the face is probably one of those things, you know, from a physical side, or like I can imagine that is stressful, but like the mental side, how do you prepare for a fight?
How do I prepare for a fight mentally?
Yes.
There's a lot of things. First of all, training hard is the most important thing. A lot of people say the way you train is the way you're going to fight. So, you know, I train hard, but it's not just showing up to the gym and going through the motions. The goal is to really train with intention every single session, every minute, training to get better. So that was a big thing for me, making sure that I'm not just training hard and going through the motions, but coming into the gym with goals and, you know, doing my best to achieve those goals. And if I don't, then I have to go back and kind of, you know, figure out why that is and try again next time. So I would say training with intention, definitely like meditation and just having a positive mindset, doing the dirty work, you know, doing the dirty work that a lot of people don't do, a lot of people avoid. I think that's super important as a fighter. You know, when you enter the cage, you want to be as clear minded as possible, as confident as possible. So, yeah, just believe in your training, believe in your preparation, and have fun.
That sounds so simple, right? and just have fun, but there's another person that is trying to knock you out. So it's not, you know, it's not like some other competition. It's like, okay, you can also run fast and we both run fast, and I'm not talking down on other sports. It's like this person is literally trying to knock me out. What is the level? Like, I mean, I would be afraid. What is the level of fear that as a professional fighter still has when going into that? Do you still have that, or are you just, when, as you just said, hey, I'll just have fun?
That's a good question. You know, I've heard like very, very high level UFC fighters say that you never really get rid of the nerves. The nerves before a fight, that tells us that we're human. You know, we're supposed to be a little bit nervous. You know, nobody wants to lose. Nobody wants to fail. Everyone wants to perform to the best of their ability. And, you know, in fighting, like, you just never know what's going to happen. I mean, you can prepare the best way you know possible, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to perform well. There's just no guarantees in this sport. So I think being a little nervous makes you human. And I mean, the goal is really just to control those nerves and I don't know, man, just have fun.
So we're back to having fun, and that seems to be one of those aspects. As in, yes, once you're in the ring, and yeah, the nerves are there, but being confident, as you said earlier, and having fun, that is, you know that you've prepared well, that makes a big difference. Now, when you look back at your fights in the past, what is your kind of most favorable memory?
Ooh.
What's your favorite?
I would have to probably say my fights in South Africa. I had the opportunity to compete in kind of like the Ultimate Fighter, but it was for a promotion in South Africa. So I stayed there for 6 weeks and I lived with these girls and trained with these girls and we fought. So that was such an incredible experience. I actually did it like 2 weight classes above mine, but man, I just wanted to go and get it as much experience as possible, and man, it was worth it. It was such a good time.
It sounds incredible. Just, go to South Africa, fight, like live there for 6 weeks and fight there. I got 2 follow-up questions on this one. One, you fought 2 weight classes above your weight. To my understanding, that of boxing or of any fighting, that is a big difference. How is that impacting you as a fighter?
Yeah, I mean, it was a big difference. Also, at the time, I was actually an amateur, and this was like a tournament for professionals. So everybody there was already pro, had pro experience. The reason that I really did it was because the fights were exhibition fights. So once again, I kind of felt like I had nothing to lose. Just wanted to go and gain that experience, especially of just being in South Africa and, like being filmed and living with these girls that I was going to compete against. Like it was a very new experience that, you don't get opportunities like that very often. But yeah, the 2 weight class thing. So I was fighting at 115. The competition was at actually 132. So I was definitely undersized, but if anyone on here was able to watch those fights, they were very scrappy fights. So I really enjoyed it. I would do it again.
All right, that sounds like a big weight difference. So we'll have to check those fights out. Now, the second follow-up question that I have to that comment in South Africa is that, well, you've been traveling through your sport quite a bit. So you've been to South Africa. To my knowledge, you have also been to the Czech Republic, Israel, Mexico. So you've been really, and Jamaica, you've been really traveling, training and fighting around the world. What's that mean to you in terms of traveling experiences, different cultures, and also you just highlighted South Africa. What made South Africa stand out compared to some of these other destinations?
My gosh.
So many questions.
Like, being able to travel is one of my favorite parts of this sport. So, you mentioned a lot of the places that I was able to go. A lot of those places I fought at. Some of them I cornered fighters at. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a once in a lifetime experience, and they're paying for the trip. Even if I have to fight, it's like, it almost feels like a vacation in a sense. I mean, yeah, I have to diet and I have to perform, but it's so cool to have opportunities to travel the world, in this game. It's one of my favorite parts for sure.
And what are some differences of fighting abroad versus fighting in the US?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think it's that different, to be honest. The only thing I can think about is, different languages. That can be hard. I would also say food. Like when you travel for a fight, you have to cut weight, and some places you go, like, they don't offer the healthiest options, or it's more difficult to find healthy food. So that's definitely a concern. What else? I mean, some places like don't have baths or saunas, so you have to kind of adjust and figure out how you're going to cut weight. But besides that, I don't think there's much difference.
Okay, so there's quite a bit in there in terms of nutritional aspects here. We actually have a segment where we ask in that we call Pro Advice. So in Pro Advice, our users send us questions for you. And
Cool.
one of those questions is actually centered around nutrition. And it basically reads, I struggle to stay on my diet in the off season and come into the season overweight. What are some tips or strategies you use to stay on a diet in the off season? Now, off season is a little bit different to preparation overseas, but it's in the same areas. And well, I'm traveling. It's probably, probably don't have access to all of the nutritional, I guess, equipment that you have when you're not traveling. So can you talk a little bit more about your nutrition and how you manage your diet?
I think the biggest thing for me is not looking at it as a diet, but more of a lifestyle. And I know this sounds cliche and kind of lame, but it's the truth. You know, like if you are trying to stick to a very, very strict diet, there's a good chance that, you know, you're going to be restricting yourself and you're not going to be able to keep up with it for very long. So, you know, my goal is to live a healthy lifestyle as much as possible. I don't restrict myself from, you know, having snacks or having certain foods. And that helps me, I think, maintain more of a healthier diet, if that makes sense.
I guess that makes, I mean, it does make sense in a way that, well, you, rather than a diet, you're really incorporating healthy food into your lifestyle. And
yeah,
it's probably helpful if you actually like the food that is somewhat healthy.
That's true too. And also, like, you know, even speaking with a nutritionist, getting a professional to help you with that. I mean, that's probably the best advice I could give, especially if you know, struggle with weight cuts and stuff like that.
And that's something that, is that something that your team would be helping, or how do you tap into resources like that?
That's a good question. So my team, my gym doesn't like provide nutritionists or anything. I know that there are some really, really good guys, especially around the fight game. Specifically, a guy that I've worked with is Pena. His Instagram, I think, is Pena Performance. He's absolutely incredible, super knowledgeable. He even like travels with fighters and cooks for them throughout fight week and stuff. So yeah, he's who I would recommend.
Okay, well, we'll have to check him out and give him a shout out down the road as well. And that's having that expertise from within the fighting community, I can imagine makes a big difference. Now, as part of like fighting is inherently an individual sport, right? So you're on your own, you have another opponent, but you're also part of the American top team. Now, what is the role of team in an individual sport?
That's a good question. I actually was just talking to my teammate about this morning, because I think that although this is an individual sport and we're all trying to kind of make it and look out for ourselves, at the same time, like having good training partners and having good energy on the mats is so important. We have probably 10 to 15 girls on our team. We train together every single day. So, you know, girls can be tough sometimes. Like, we're all scrappy, we're all tough, we all have our own personalities, we're all from different, you know, parts of the world. But I find that when we're able to work together and kind of have a common goal of helping each other get better, it helps us all so much more. So just having good energy on the mats and you know, helping each other prepare for fights and kind of looking out for each other, I think it's very, very beneficial to have a strong team around you.
And that's a really insightful answer. Now, when you work with each other, you train with each other, I guess you support each other during fights, unless you fight one another. But do you also support each other in the business world? Are there some collaborations, some, I don't know, support on social media, film, video, any of that? Is there collaboration, or does everyone do their own thing?
I think there certainly can be. Um, I don't know how much it's actually done. Like I said, all fighters are busy. You know, everyone is tired, training really hard. So, but yeah, I think like if you asked and there was a specific project or something that you wanted to do, for sure you could find someone that would be interested in collaborating.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, one thing you just mentioned was that there are 10, 15 girls on the team.
Mhm.
And earlier you mentioned also that when you started out, there wasn't as much support for professional women boxers, as in making some money, going pro. How
Mhm.
has the boxing scene and the fighting scene in general changed for women over the last year since you started, and where do you see it progressing?
Wow, that is a good question. I think that women in combat sport, especially, man, the UFC, I mean, in just 5 years, the entire dynamic has changed. It wasn't that long ago that women were fighting for the first time in the UFC. And this is maybe 5, 6 years later, and you see women headlining shows and, making a ton of money. So that is pretty incredible to see and to be able to witness. Even women's boxing as well. Like I said, I switched to MMA because there wasn't a lot of opportunity for females in boxing, but now I think you're starting to see that shift a little bit. You have Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano that are headlining a huge card. I mean, that is history in the making. So I'm so happy to see women be recognized in this sport and to, get the love and some of the money that they deserve.
And is that, call it a rise, is that helping the whole sport and all, or is it just really concentrated at the top?
Ooh, good question. I think it's helping to accelerate the sport on every level. I think that young girls being able to see women headline shows, I think that they're exposed more to it. So I think that girls are starting to train younger, and you're kind of seeing this new wave of talent of girls who have been training really MMA. Not just kickboxing, not just jujitsu, but started training MMA at a young age. And I think that the talent is just going to get better and better and better every single year. I think you're really going to see the talent and the sport expand for the females.
That's incredible to hear. Now, when you were starting out, I would assume there weren't as many female role models around, but did you have any role models to follow, or do you still have any role models that you are following? It's like, this, I take this advice from here and so on.
For sure. I get the question a lot, who's your favorite fighter? And I always say my teammates, the people that I grind with every single day, the people that I look up to. Um, as you know, I'm from American Top Team, so there's legends on the mat every single day, and you see people go through personal issues. You see some of the biggest stars get beat up on the mat and keep coming back harder. So it's like, those are the people who are my favorite fighters. You asked about role model. I would say specifically Joanna Jędrzejczyk is a huge supporter of mine, a friend of mine. Um, every single time we train together, she pushes me on the mat. She has such great energy, a lot of energy that girl has, and that makes me better. I would also say Amanda Nunes and Nina Ansaroff. For sure, Kayla Harrison, who is one of my absolute best friends. That girl is incredible in every way. So yeah, I do have a lot of role models for sure, and I'm grateful for that.
That's
Um,
great to hear. Now, and when you train with them and fight them, and then you go, I guess you just mentioned they're some of your best friends.
mhm.
What's that dynamic? As in, hey, this one moment I'm trying to beat your ass, the next moment is like, hey, let's go for coffee.
Yeah, that is kind of a funny thing. Just like waking up on a Tuesday morning and you drink your morning coffee and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go to the gym now and get in a 5 round fight. Like that really is kind of an insane concept. But I don't know, man. I guess you kind of just get used to it. Just like people wonder, what's it like to get punched in the face? You kind of get used to it. It doesn't hurt as bad as you think it does. It kind of more so hurts your ego than anything. So, I mean, the goal as fighters is to be able to put our ego to the side. We train hard, we get each other better, but after we shake hands and the round is over, like you leave whatever is left on the mat. Actually, my teammate just commented on here saying my girl's gonna kick some butt. Her and I just did 3 hard rounds this morning. She gave me one of these. So like, it's all love, it's all love. That's why it's good to have like good training partners who are willing to push you, but also want to see you do well, because without that, man, it would be really, really hard to grow.
That's awesome. So shout out to Elise Anderson. I can see here for a little bit of a punch in the face and the support as well.
Thanks,
That's awesome. It's awesome to have that community. Now we also see right now, even just on all of these comments here, people are really, really supporting. You have a lot of fan engagement here. What does that call it? The love that the fans show. What does that mean to you as an artist, as a fighter?
To be honest, it means everything to me. I fight because I love to fight, but I also have a really deep desire to inspire people, to, lead by example, and just show people that no matter what hard times you go through, like you can keep going, you can bite down, you can keep fighting. And, if you really invest in yourself and do the hard work, you can make something out of yourself, no matter where you come from, no matter what cards you're dealt. So that support means a lot to me.
And that's awesome. And I mean, we hear some of your fans commenting, "You've inspired me," and I mean, that is just so incredible to see how athletes really make a difference. And when you talk about role models and so on, that's great.
She said I'm one of the nicest. Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, man, I'm a soft inside. Like these supportive messages, like I'm like, oh, me? It's so sweet. That's my goal. There's a lot of hate in this world. Everyone's going through hard times. My goal is to be a light, even in such a violent sport.
And I think that's one thing that you oftentimes see is that hard shell and really soft core of people. That is incredible. Now, I do want to be cognizant of your time, but those were amazing insights. Now, for any of our followers here interested in connecting more with you, you have your experience store set up on the SPRTER app. So anyone check out Kayla's experiences there, such as personal Zoom calls and so on. Also, make sure to follow her along on all of the socials. Download the SPRTER app for some insights there, as well as all of the other socials at K-Rock MMA. And thank you so much for joining today and providing your insights and learning more about your story and about, well, that combination of life and fighting. It's just really inspiring to hear. And you provided some awesome insights for anyone wanting to, cut and look into those nutritional side aspects as well. So really appreciate those insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Have an awesome day, and all of our followers and listeners, make sure to connect with Kayla. Bye.